welcome. My name is Matt Littlefield, President and Research Lead here at LNS Research. And today we're having our session on LinkedIn Live on Operationalizing Sustainability for next-gen strategies for EHS leaders. We're going to dive deep into how you go beyond just the tactical and really understand what you have to do to partner with operations to transform the business and hit those goals that are quite staggering for many companies today. So before we jump in, I want to introduce our newest analyst, Allison Kuhn. Hello, Allison.
Hey, Matt. Good morning.
Good morning. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your coverage and your background?
Sure. So this has been just a goal for me for years to get into the EHS space, and sustainability being such an important factor for our future generations, really playing on that operational and maintenance expertise that I've come from the Dow Chemicals and Huntsman, and also just knowledge management and workforce training and education. This is a way to marry all of those together and prepare for our future and improve the now.
Great. Thanks, Allison. So Allison is a part of the team. She's going to be a great resource for all of our members. So I'm looking forward to having her join you in your journeys on transformation. So for today's session, I'm going to talk a little bit about LNS research, how we view the industrial transformation space, how it pertains to operationalizing sustainability. Allison will take you through the details of that pragmatic plan, and then we will ask and answer your questions online, live. So let's get started. So LNS Research, we are on a mission to empower industry leaders to transform their organizations. That's what we go to bed thinking about. That's what we wake up thinking about. We are your trusted advisor, your partner to move your business forward. We work with a whole set of roles, including heads of operation, heads of IT, heads of quality, and heads of EHS and sustainability, our topic here today. And our vision is a world where industrial companies are agile, autonomous, and sustainable. So when you hear us talk about industrial transformation, what do we mean and where did it come from? So we see it as a proactive and coordinated approach to achieving step change performance gains in your business. And it really emerged out of Industry 4.0, which started maybe kind of early to mid 2010s. And those early initiatives were very OT focused, they were very machine and data centric, and they were very kind of within the four walls in terms of their scale and scope. And that progressed for a few years, really starting at Hanover Messe in 2011. But especially as cloud, AI, a number of digital technologies emerged, a lot of companies launched digital transformation initiatives that were beyond just manufacturing and were really focused on all aspects of the business, but were also technology-led. So many of these companies had essentially an OT version of industrial transformation and an IT version of industrial transformation. And many of the companies during that time, you think 2015, 2016, IT-OT convergence became a challenge, pilot purgatory became a challenge, and there was gaps, I would say, in terms of how companies approached their transformation initiatives and silos. So a lot of companies, to address this challenge, launched business-focused initiatives. And these initiatives weren't always focused within the factory or on operations. Often they could have been product-centric or customer-centric, but rather than being led by IT or led by a chief digital officer, they were led by a business leader. It could have been head of engineering, head of product development, head of sales. And this proved to be a successful approach where the business takes the lead and technology teams partner and support that business vision. So over time, those initiatives proliferated. It wasn't just a product team or a customer transformation team or an industrial team. There were many, many initiatives that were going live. And that's what we call industrial transformation, where it's not OT-led, it is business-led, and it touches a number of end-to-end business processes across the value chain, including sustainability and ESG, as well as the future of industrial work. So we look at the autonomous plant, quality 4.0, sustainable operations, and the future of industrial work really as those main areas of industrial transformation. Tying that to transformation, to sustainability, there have also been shifts in this world. So I have Ford as an example here. If you look back at the Ford approach to sustainability in 2012, 10 years ago, it was very incremental in nature. It was very continuous improvement based. It was, how do we improve energy intensity by 2% a year? How do we reduce waste or water usage by 2% a year? Today, 10 years later, it is not about incrementalism. It is about transformation. It is about step change. It's about how to get to carbon neutral, zero accidents, zero emissions, zero waste, zero water, complete energy renewals in operations. And that can't be done just by step. It really takes a new approach to operations. So with that, I will pass it to Allison, and she will take you through some of her newest research on how to operationalize sustainability.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. So as Matt said, being new, it's a great opportunity to bring in, as you saw from the transformational paradigm, the EHS and sustainability, ESG, and then the future of industrial work, actually being the two sides of each coin. And what better to know now how we can start approaching this together when we see such incredible news out there, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You see these wonderful goals of net carbon zero by 2024, 2025. You also see things, however, such as greenwashing, companies that are putting out promises but aren't really maybe holding up their end of the bargain, or in some cases it's actually found to be somewhat fraudulent. So part of ESG and sustainability is really understanding how to go beyond reporting and what are the important aspects of the ESG and sustainability window. So for that C-suite impact, we know that there is such opportunity here for the risk to come in and create a huge threat to your organization, but there's a significant opportunity as well. We see that over 70% of our sustainability leaders out in industry are finding that corporate financial gain and getting that long-term growth. We're seeing that capitalizing on the opportunities is delivering to the bottom line and improving operations. So just to kind of set this structure here and understand the terminology, ESG and sustainability are often used very interchangeably. So the way we like to look at it here at LNS is ESG is really the how-to. It's that framework on how you're going to deliver into the sustainability metrics of space. So that sustainability being that bigger, broader to be term, where we're really making sure that we have what we need today to make the products that we need to sustain life now, but also make sure that we're leaving enough for my children, your children, and our future generations. So part of that is getting into that next gen transformation. As Matt said, not that incremental step change, but true transformative delivery through sustainability initiatives that actually deliver to the bottom line of operational value. So the value of sustainable operations, we're seeing it, it exists, and we want to help you capitalize on that. So we're going to go through first the threats, understanding risks, and then looking at opportunity. The first thing to understand is if you're really not understanding that sustainability can be such a complex, uncertain, and potential for disruption, you're going to be missing out. That scorekeeping or scoring, if you're really looking at it as, what can I tell my stakeholders to include not only our investors, but the especially Gen Z, they really expect us to be delivering, or else they're not really interested in buying our products or coming to work for us. So it really starts from the top. If you look at mechanical integrity or asset performance, if you're really looking at the numbers, OEE, a really hot topic, then you're really just delivering numbers and not getting the value. So actions disconnected from strategy. Matt, it really starts from the top.
Sure does.
As the top for LNS, you set the tone in how we approach our research and how we can deliver. If the board and the C-suite and all of the top leaders are not really stating sustainability and ESG is not just the right thing to do, it is how we will do our operations and achieve what we need. an operation-centric environment is the one that will deliver the most for sustainability as well as for the business. Speaking of business, right, we look at our typical ROI calculations, and I really think that more and more are having to see that the old way of looking at return is just not going to work for sustainability. These huge big goals for net zero and achieving an environment in which we're going to be using our resources to the best and using as least energy as possible, if you're not really looking at that business case and finding a way to truly justify a sustainability initiative outside of value, then you're really going to struggle to achieve big transformational goals. Maybe have a little improvement, but not transformational. And when you do find that improvement, even if it's smaller, not necessarily drastic, if you don't scale that across the enterprise, you've just really wasted your resources that you put into that effort. So scale it across the enterprise, make sure you deliver on that, and don't look at sustainability as just, hey, one of those nice to haves, let's just, add it to our programs, it looks cool, it feels good. No, actually incorporating it and having it more as bolted on versus built in is really how you're going to embed sustainability throughout operations. So how do we do that? Again, if we don't start from the top, that strategic alignment, then we're really not going to have that organization set up to be able to achieve those goals, understand how they play that part, and work within that framework. So what are some smart ways of doing it? Well, converging transformation initiatives is one. I know that Connected Frontline Worker, or Future of Industrial Work, as we like to say, that's an opportunity to engage from the ground frontline up. Those are critical folks that are really understand where's our waste in operations and how can we improve our processes. Is it training? Improve that training and help those achieve the goals we're looking for. So embedding sustainability into operations, it's really looking at those processes and saying, hey, how can I really look at the entire supply chain? Let's look at how we're making the product and then how are we getting it out the door, end to end, and really look at how we're going to make sure that we have the right metrics in place. We know what the KPIs are that are going to improve sustainability, but also the operational effectiveness. If it's not incentivizing the workers, it's just not in the end going to deliver. And then we talked already, right, about the pivot and the scale early success. So these charts here just show that true vision to value. It's great to understand maybe where you want to go, proving it. We all have to prove to our bosses and our business leadership how to continue to fund. But if you don't really take that step and move from the prove to true scale, you're not going to help those across your enterprise, and you're not going to really get that value if you can't really cross that chasm. So,
Yeah, just to add on to that, this whole idea of vision to value and moving from proving something to scaling something, the idea of the pivot is that some of the things you do in those early stages around the vision can inhibit your later growth. Some things are important you build on, but some things actually have to shift. So in sustainability, that's true. In quality, that's true. In operations, that's true. And so I think one of the areas in sustainability where that's true is on ESG and reporting. So there's a lot of focus today on reporting, which makes sense, right? Because that is what justifies inclusion in some of those ESG initiatives, which opens up a lot of doors for financing, which is critical for asset-intensive industries like ours. But at the same time, if all you're focusing on is reporting, that's not going to help you scale change, right? So that would be one of the pivots from moving from reporting to real analytics, real improved decision-making. Just one of many examples.
Yeah. Thanks for that intro to the next slide. It really works out well, right? What do we have going forward? You can look at the current reporting structure and say, this is a huge risk. There's over 600 ESG reporting opportunities and ways of reporting. How does one choose? So do you look at it as a risk, or do you really take that on as an opportunity? Don't wait on it. So what our future research is really going to look at is identifying further those leaders in the area and those best practices. We're going to go beyond reporting and really look at what are the things going on across Industry 4.0. How do we, again, converge those initiatives, and what is the value of the data we're collecting? All of these IT, OT systems, if we're not using it. Advanced analytics, big data, that will be the way to get transformational change. Decision based off of data. So we're going to be really collecting information on how do we move to the environment which we have the systems in place to collect our data. We know the framework in which it needs to be to understand what that data says. And then, like you said, how do we then make changes? How do we pivot? How do we adjust based off of what we're seeing? So we're going to be focusing further on the numerous sustainability ESG applications that are out there now. You hear a lot of them saying, hey, we've got this great new dashboard. We've got this great new system to pull in all your data silos. Yes, there's some work there that's in the area, but we really want to help in our next research be able to truly select the best for your application. The factory of the future, again, all of the IT, OT advances, how can you work that into your sustainability programs? And then future of industrial work, one of my focus areas as well, how can we make sure not just the connected critical frontline, but the entire organization has access to that data, and we're all on the same path. We understand where we are going because that strategy is there. So with those things combined, the biggest opportunities or barriers are people, processes, and technology, but we also want to show that it is also the biggest opportunity. And what do people want to deliver on, and what are we tracking in sustainability and ESG with analytics? We see our reducing energy consumption, our safety and risk management, our carbon reporting, environmental and emissions, and the rest that you see there. We're really going to be able to do this together, and with our research that is coming out within the year, I hope that folks stay tuned and we get there together.
Great. Thanks, Allison. So I encourage folks to ask questions through the comment and the chat. But you mentioned people, process, and technology, so I'll start off with a few questions in that area. So we'll start on the people side. So you in your career, you have a cross-functional background. You understand operations and maintenance. You also understand EHS and sustainability and safety. And I think that's a really powerful combination. I see it all the time in our members. Those who maybe didn't take an entirely EHS track or entirely quality track or entirely IT track, but maybe touched operations and bounced back and forth, seem to be those folks best positioned to be change agents in the organization. So maybe at Dow or Huntsman that was planned, but my guess is it was more haphazard based on your own interests and opportunities. But I think as we look at future industrial work, more and more companies might want to foster that cross-functional career path. So what do you see as opportunities maybe or strategies companies can do to help foster that cross-functional career path?
Not just fostering a cross-functional career path for the business, but for the employee. In order to become that workplace of the future who people want to belong with, they want to know that you have a vision and they have an opportunity with your company to grow. When it comes to sustainability, it's really key to understand the EHS background is important, but honestly what we're seeing more is that operation-centric operational roles likely will be one of the better of the roles in order to hit more of that social and governance aspect, not just the environmental. Yep. So that's really a best practice that we're seeing is not only to look at your employees and look at that more cross-functional diverse approach for ESG leaders in the future, but staying in step with operations, understanding where they're at, staying engaged, understanding what the issues are, and then keeping up with their maturity cycle as far as where they're at in the transformation curve.
Yep. Yeah, I think on that issue, I've been surprised. I know a number of our members have been surprised that often just by asking within operations, do you have interest in IT or do you have interest in sustainability? And I think you'd be very surprised to find out how many folks within operations may have interests and even skills in some of these other areas. So on the process side, one of the things that has come out of our analytics research over and over again is that companies that just launch an analytics tool outside of the existing problem solving or change management processes that a company has, fail to deliver on the goals. People don't use it, they don't understand it, but if it's built into the process, the management system, it gets used and it delivers value. So when you think about sustainability and ESG applications and also advanced analytics, where do you think companies should start with that? Maybe data lakes and data models, maybe somewhere else? How do you think you embed sustainability analytics in the business process?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, considering that Microsoft Excel, great tool, but it's significantly the largest used tool to understand data.
Mm-hmm.
But as you getting into that data lake, getting into more of that hub aspect, really eliminates the silos and brings together the information that you can then use in a variety of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at your architecture, setting in place that data hub and architecture in order to be able to provide a source for the new analytics tools and systems. But again, putting a tool out there does nothing if they don't understand the context or if they don't have the training to use it. That's one of the biggest oversights is we spend the money for the tool, for the program or application, but we don't focus on the actual rollout to the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
In enabling our goals and achieving them is really key on that knowledge management and understanding how do I use this and which way, who do I go to for help, and standardization, standardization, standardization.
Yeah. We were just having this conversation with one of our members that will be presenting at the IX event in October. Mm-hmm. And everyone wants to do projects. Everyone wants to deploy technology. Everybody's going to run into budget challenges. It doesn't matter how profitable, how successful your company is. There'll always be a need to justify and cut where it makes sense. And sometimes cut more than you might want to. So where does that cut happen? Don't cut in change management. Don't cut out and cut rollout or training. Cut feature function, right? If you max out feature function but don't do any change management, that's really a recipe for failure.
Yeah, and we talked about making sure that we're taking the initiatives of doing convergence, really looking at what are those tools that you're enabling the connected frontline workforce with right now. What are those programs and how do we then connect them to these systems and data lakes and information that helps drive sustainability as well? Killing two birds with one stone will always be the smartest approach. But
Mm-hmm.
You're right. There is never that unending pot of money. You will always have to justify not only the investment but the return. And in industry across the board, making sure that investment continues, that you don't walk away from it, that you forget about it, again, that you don't roll it out, but making sure you get the biggest amount of value from that investment, which includes the resources that were used to drive that into place.
Mm-hmm. Great. So another question for you, maybe on the technology side, we can touch on this topic of IT and OT convergence, right? And so when you talk about sustainability, on the IT side, there's a lot happening. There's new applications, there's new analytics, there's the need to be reporting this data to third parties. On the OT side, there's a lot of exciting innovation happening as well, right? On motor efficiency, equipment efficiency, lots of different things happening there, carbon capture. So where do you see more maybe focus or interest today? Is it balanced? Is it more on one side or the other? And how do you recommend these groups come together?
I really see a lot of advancement in both, right? Some of the newer, greatest things we see from hyperscalers, which don't really have that industry understanding or background, but they're able to put in these smart sensors to put it on our pumps and our motors to be able to get that data more immediately. We're seeing more camera technology that's not only being used to look for emissions and even safety related issues, and using AI to be able to then report up quickly where do we see issues and how can we quickly fix it. So it's really across the board. But the biggest thing that we need to make sure is that we're continuing to have IT and OT get past dating and more into the engagement relationship, maybe for a marriage, right?
Yeah.
The best part is to be able to make sure that you use the best from both, understanding that they both have application, they both need to have the right investment, and building that framework, that that ESG framework of how are we going to use these systems and data to get to where we want to be, sustainable.
Great. And I just a couple other thoughts on IT and OT convergence. One that I've seen be successful for companies is this idea that OT maybe report into operations as part of the operations group, but they're not operations themselves, right? They are still technology support. It's just dedicated technology support. They don't get product out the door every day. They deliver technology that helps get product out the door every day. IT is essentially the same. It's just a shared service, not a dedicated service. So if there is this common understanding that both groups are supporting operations, that can foster this team-based environment, right?
Yeah, with this new paradigm of sustainability, I can't help but recall the fun of being a support organization within industry. Operations is king. We want to get the product made. We want to get product out of the door. But if we don't understand the criticality of those support systems and how we can work together, we're not really going to make transformational change. It takes a true cross-functional effort from all parts of the business and all aspects of the supply chain. So making sure that we're listening to our OT and IT counterparts, as much as it may hurt us, make us feel that, hey, you don't really understand the operations environment, help them understand. Making sure we break down those silos and using that cross-functional engagement, and again, working towards those strategic objectives that have been set from the top and not just lip service. Even if you're planning on retiring within the next few years to an island in the Caribbean, reporting net zero by 2030, we need to see the progress, not just for our businesses, but for our future and the generations to come. And Gen Z, they expect to see applications, technology in the workforce, training, advancement, but they also will walk away from a company that aren't focused on sustainability and aren't delivering in sustainability.
Great. All right, we got a couple minutes left, so last question. Let's focus on the EHS leader. Some practical recommendations for them. So what do EHS leaders have to do today in terms of maybe choosing starting points or use cases to begin the journey, and then also how to partner with operational leaders?
Yeah, so EH&S, when we look at the history and risk management, right? Understanding the corrective actions that are needing to happen, quantifying what could happen, responding to when it does. So I think really that is where we can work in that type of program and systematic approach, and making sure that it's fundamentally understood. How are we going to look at the sustainability issues, and how are we going to prioritize them in order to implement our new initiatives, understand what investments are best, and understand how, again, we can play off of the experience that we've already built, and then use that in achieving that next generational sustainability ESG operations, which again is not just the best thing to do. And if you think it's just because it's something nice to have, and within the next year or so, you're going to be surprisingly shocked to see you'll not only be left behind, but you will have significant impacts based off of where the market is going with the FTC and then other regulations coming out for investments as well as ESG reporting.
Great. And, I think maybe just to add to that, really around goal setting, I think is one area. And this idea of getting to zero zero incidents, zero emissions, setting those big goals, and partnering with operations around those goals tied to the mission, I think is a great way to get involved. And then organizationally, as companies create often councils or other structures to foster cross-functional engagement, have those EHS leaders take a leadership role in that. Really get involved if there is a digital council or a data council or an operations council. Get involved and use that to drive partnerships and engagement.
We've seen significant advances in driving down incident rates, driving down environmental impacts. Don't be afraid to set the big goals.
Yep.
We're seeing across the board, leaders are involved in many more initiatives. We're tracking many more KPIs. Everybody's resources are always tapped and or limited. So have it smarter, right? Where can we do overlap and achieve more? So don't be afraid to really look across the board and making sure that you're hitting all of those important areas.
Yeah.
Follow those leaders.
All right. Well, thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you to the audience. We hope you enjoyed the show today, and we're looking forward to many more. Thank you.
Absolutely.